Three spine-chilling and sinister true stories of springtime horrors revealed from the haunted past. Jenna gripped the steering wheel as she pulled into the driveway of their new home, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The classic two-story structure with a white picket fence seemed to radiate charm, but whispers of something sinister lurked just beneath the surface. As she stepped out, the scent of blooming cherry blossoms filled the air, sweet yet deceivingly innocent. It was the perfect suburban setting for a fresh start with her kids, 8-year-old Lily and 6-year-old Max. She envisioned school picnics, backyard barbecues, and the easy laughter of friendly neighbors, everything she had lost in her painful divorce. Days passed, and the idyllic facade began to fracture. It started with odd symbols appearing in the front lawn, shadowy figures that shimmered under the full moon's glow. Jenna dismissed them as childish pranks, but her unease grew with each crescent moon. Then, packages began to arrive at unusual hours. Inside, she found disturbing relics, a tattered doll with eyes that seemed to follow her, a rusted locket housing a faded photo of a girl with an unsettling smile, and an antique hairbrush interlaced with long, dark strands. Each delivery felt like a malevolent whisper from the community's hidden past. One afternoon, exchanging pleasantries with a neighbor, Jenna caught a chilling story about a girl named Sophie who had vanished years ago. The woman's voice trembled as she spoke of Sophie last being seen playing in a field of flowers known for their night-blooming petals, flowers that held secrets and legends. Jenna felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The neighbor's tight smile spoke volumes and convinced her that something was deeply wrong. Before she knew it, dread surrounded her like a suffocating blanket. She decided to confront Deputy Harper, the town's supposed authority on all things good and safe. As she nervously recounted her worries, his friendly demeanor slipped, revealing a flicker of darkness hidden behind his jovial smile. He dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand, suggesting she not dwell on superstitions that plagued old towns. Her heart raced as she recognized that the protector should be heartrendingly sincere, but instead wore the mask of a patronizing skeptic. Days turned into a blur of strange occurrences. Jenna found herself drawn to the abandoned school at the edge of Maplewood, its dilapidated structure promising secrets waiting to be uncovered. The weeds choked the entrance, but she pushed the door open, holding her breath at the overwhelming darkness. Shadows twisted and turned in every corner as she ventured into the crumbling halls. Echoes of laughter, faint yet eerily reminiscent of children at play, danced around her ears. But was it real laughter or something more sinister? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every step down the dark corridors, Jenna felt the weight of the past pressing against her chest. Secrets were hidden in the walls, and she could almost feel the eyes of those lost watching her. Suddenly, a soft tapping behind her broke the tense silence. She turned, her heart pounding, but found nothing. The flickering lights cast grotesque shadows that twisted and turned, making her feel like a puppet in a silent play of horrors. In her quest for safety, Jenna now realized she was flirting with the unknown, and each moment brought her closer to a lingering dread that she couldn't shake. And just like that, with the sensation of unseen sinister forces closing in on her, the question loomed like a dark cloud. In her desperate quest for a safe haven, what would Jenna have to sacrifice to protect her children from whatever monstrosities lay in wait? As Jenna moved deeper into the bowels of the old school, the air grew stale, thick with the scent of decay and something sweeter, almost floral. The laughter faded into a haunting echo, leaving behind an oppressive silence that made her skin crawl. She felt trapped, as if the very walls were alive, closing off her escape. Distant sounds became sharper, creaks and groans transformed into urgent whispers, filling her mind with dread. A flash of movement caught her eye. She spun around just in time to see a figure dart behind a cracked doorway at the end of the hall. Heart racing, Jenna crept toward the shadow, adrenaline surging through her veins. "Hello?" she called, her voice wavering. No response. Only the whispering, the maddening whispering. Panic crept in as she reached the door. Was it a child? Was it Sophie? She clutched the doorknob, hesitant. What if it wasn't Sophie? What if it was something else? A chill ran down her spine. Gathering her courage, she turned the knob and pushed the door open, revealing a dusty classroom frozen in time. Desks were arranged in perfect rows, covered in layers of grime and forgotten memories. The chalkboard was still full of faded lesson plans, as if waiting for a teacher who would never return. In the corner, half hidden by shadows, lay a pile of children's belongings, lunch boxes, crayons, and a small, familiar doll with frayed limbs. Jenna gasped, recognizing the doll from her front porch. It was the same cursed doll that had seemed to watch her. She stumbled back. "What is happening?" she murmured, feeling bile rise in her throat. Suddenly, the whispering intensified. Hundreds of voices overlapping in a cacophony, ethereal and terror-filled. "Help us, find her." The words sliced through the silence like glass. Jenna felt her heart clamor in her chest. "Sophie? Is that you?" She felt utterly foolish, yet desperation clawed at her consciousness. A flicker caught her eye. Something moved again, this time outside the window. Dark shapes danced in the moonlight spilling through the cracked glass. Shadows reformed into faint silhouettes of children, playing among the night-blooming flowers. Their laughter echoed out, sweet yet haunting. Where were they? Were they trapped forever? Then it hit her, the neighbor's warning. Those flowers held legends, secrets that twisted in the cool night air. Jenna stepped back, fear gripping her. "I have to leave," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder as if someone were standing right behind her. But the moment she turned to flee, the door slammed shut, trapping her inside. It rattled violently as she pounded on it. "Let me out." The walls trembled with rage, shaking dust on her head. The whispers turned into wailing shrieks, a chilling sound that rose in pitch. Jenna collapsed to the floor, panic melting her strength, as she realized the truth. Sophie wasn't lost, she was part of this hell. Was Jenna now destined to join her? Frantically, she searched for anything to aid her escape. A girl peered from the corner, her eyes wide and pleading, yet Jenna could not discern if it was Sophie or something else entirely. The figure reached out, eyes glistening in the dark. Jenna was almost hypnotized as she gazed at the apparition. The girl whispered, "You have to find the flowers, save us." The breaths in Jenna's lungs quickened. "What flowers?" she stammered, fear coursing through her. But before the girl could reply, the room spun violently, and the shadows bled into one another. The walls began to pulse, the very building coming to life. With no choice, Jenna clung to her resolve. She had to find the flowers, but could she face whatever waited in the field? Was this a descent into madness, or her only chance to uncover the tragic truth? In that moment, an icy voice echoed within her mind, "Time is running out, there's no way back." What awaited Jenna in the night-blooming field? Would she uncover the truth about Sophie, or become another lost whisper in the chilling tales of Maplewood? Jenna's heart pounded in her chest as the room settled, dim and heavy with dread. The girl in the corner shimmered like a ghost, shadows pooling around her feet. "Find the flowers." The girl's voice, soft as a breeze, echoed like a distant memory that clawed at the edges of Jenna's mind. "Where?" Jenna gasped, the desperation almost bursting from her lips. The girl pointed towards the window, her gesture jittery and frantic, as if she were afraid of being caught. "You must hurry. They don't want you here." What did she mean by they? A wave of nausea hit Jenna as the whispers rose again, merging into something unrecognizable. She clenched her fists, glancing around the eerie room for an exit. The door loomed firm and unyielding behind her, while the window framed a menacing night outside. This was not a time for hesitation. With fear as her fuel, Jenna surged toward the window. She grasped the sill, pushing herself upward amidst the shadows. Splintered glass crunched beneath her hands, but she didn't care. Outside, the air was thick with the scent of cloying flowers, their sweetness now a bitter reminder of the warning she had been given. As she stepped onto the ground, the soft earth beneath her churned, like a heartbeat thrumming beneath the surface. The night-blooming flowers swayed in the moonlight, their petals wide open, revealing deep, pulsating centers that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. She had seen these before. They were the same flowers she'd spotted swaying by her neighbor's house, the same flowers tied to Sophie's disappearance. "Please save us!" The echoing whispers of countless voices surrounded her now, swirling like a tempest, pulling her deeper into the shadows of the night. Each breath drew her further into terror, each step pounding against her resolve. Jenna hesitated, glancing back at the school. Something stirred in the corner of her eye. Another shadow darted away, merging with the trees just beyond the field. It felt like they were watching her, every pair of unseen eyes tracking her movements. Anxiety clawed at her. She had to decide quickly. "Find her, or join us," the girl's voice whispered in the breeze again, laced with urgency. "Who?" Jenna shouted to the emptiness. "Who do I find?" But a thick laughter broke out from the woods, a gut-wrenching sound that echoed of despair and twisted joy. It was an invitation and a threat rolled into one, snatching at the basis of her sanity. Fighting the impulse to flee, Jenna turned her gaze back to the field, the flowers shimmering under the eerie moonlight, as if they were beckoning her closer. Desperation pressed at her like a vice. With a shaky breath, she stepped towards them, drawn by an unseen force. Then she saw a glint of something tangled among the roots. The pulse of her heart quickened as she reached out. Could it be? Her fingers brushed against cold metal. A locket? She could feel the weight of it, the stories trapped inside, begging to be told. But just then, the laughter erupted again, this time louder and more frantic, drowning out her thoughts. Shadows twisted, shifting closer, and a voice low and dangerous permeated the air. "Leave or become one of us," Jenna faltered, the weight of the decision paralyzing her. Could she risk delving into these flowers, terrifying and enchanting at the same time? Could she trust the whispers that promised salvation yet sounded so much like despair? A shudder ran through her as she realized, she was no longer alone. In the depths of the woods, figures began to emerge, pale and twisted lost children, all eyes flickering with longing and despair. Their silent screams echoed off the trees, a whispered promise that would haunt her decisions. "Join us!" The dark shapes shuffled forward, their reach encroaching on Jenna's resolve. She grabbed hold of the locket tighter, her pulse thrumming with dread. But ahead, an overwhelming aura loomed around the flowers. Would they lead her to the truth about Sophie or to her doom? Before she could decide, a hand grasped her shoulder from behind, cold and unyielding. Time is running out. What horrors awaited her as the darkness closed in? Would she uncover the secrets of the flowers or vanish like the others claimed by the night? Jenna's breath caught in her throat, the chill of the hand grazing her shoulder sending a jolt of ice through her veins. She spun around, the locket slipping from her fingers, clattering onto the hard earth. Every muscle in her body screamed to flee, but terror anchored her feet to the ground. Behind her stood a figure cloaked in shadow, yet the outline was disturbingly familiar. It was the girl. Only now, her face had twisted into a mask of despair and rage. "You shouldn't have come here!" she screamed, her voice slicing through the air like a knife. "Who are you?" Jenna stammered, her eyes darting from the girl to the horde of pale, lost children creeping ever closer. "What do you want from me?" "Find her!" The girl cried again, but her once ethereal presence now seemed tainted by fear. "You must act before it's too late." Before Jenna could process her words, the laughter returned, a cacophony from all around. The shadows pressed in, every giggle sending shimmering chills down her spine. They moved like a wretched tide, driven by an unseen force, encroaching toward the very flowers that beckoned her. Panic surged within Jenna. She took a step back, but the girl in the shadows stepped forward, her hand reaching out as if to pull Jenna toward the depths of the darkness. Sophie is trapped. You have to help her. Help? The word felt foreign. It hung in the air like a bitter taste. Would aiding Sophie mean stepping deeper into this madness? The whispers tormented her ears, "Join us, save her." Their cadence wove a sinister song, and every word felt like a phantom grasping at her sanity. Suddenly, clarity burst through her confusion. Sophie. The memory of her friend's laughter, the summer days spent together, swelled within her. Jenna was here to find a way for herself but to rescue someone she loved. Where do I find her? Jenna clutched the girl's arm, desperation igniting in her chest. Follow the light, the girl whispered, her voice tinged with both urgency and fear. Then, in an instant, her form flickered and faded into the darkness, leaving Jenna standing alone, surrounded by the puckered faces of the children. Heart pounding, Jenna glanced back toward the flowers. The night had taken on a sickly hue, the petals now pulsating like a heartbeat, a beacon in the shadows. The whispers shifted, intensifying, blending into a single echoing call. Something deep inside compelled her to move. One foot in front of the other, she stepped toward the flowers, determination overshadowing her fear. As she reached out, the ground trembled beneath her, and the flower petals twisted, their deep centers unveiling a path spiraling downward into the depths of the earth. What is this? She gasped, peering into the abyss. The scent of sweetness turned suddenly acrid, choking her as the whispers became an urgent plea. Find her, she's in there. Jenna hesitated. Logic screamed to turn back, but a force beyond her sinister comprehension grasped her heart and dragged her closer. The shadows stirred with anticipation, and the figures of lost children shadowed her steps, pushing her toward the dreadful path. With one last glance at the moonlit sky, a prayer whispered in her heart, she stepped forward. The ground swallowed her whole, and darkness enveloped her as she tumbled into the unknown. Falling through the cold void, Jenna gasped for breath, her mind racing. Would she find Sophie waiting for her at the end of this vertiginous descent, or something worse? A chilling thought seized her. What if some part of her would never return at all? As the darkness thickened closer, a scream echoed from below. Was it Sophie's voice urging her on, or a warning to turn back? The choice was made. No matter the horror lurking ahead, Jenna would face it. What awaited in the depths? Just as her resolve fortified, a pair of icy hands reached out from the darkness, grasping her shoulders once more. Welcome back. What did they mean? What had they done to Sophie? The shadows laughed, raucous and discordant, and Jenna's scream was drowned in the chilling echoes of despair. The darkness was alive, wrapping around Jenna like a suffocating blanket. The icy grip on her shoulders tightened, and she could barely make out the laughter echoing around her, taunting, waiting. She struggled, but the hands held her firm, each finger a cold, sharp dagger against her skin. Let me go. She shouted, her voice barely a whisper against the relentless gloom. Not a chance. The voice was thick with malice, slinking through the shadows. The hands released her as suddenly as they had seized her, sending her tumbling backwards. She landed hard on the cold ground, the softness of dark soil swallowing her like a shroud. Gasping, Jenna looked up. The shadows shifted, dancing across the walls of a cavern that seemed to materialize around her. Parts of it glimmered with a sickly glow, emanating from veins of what looked like luminescent stone embedded deep in the earth. The faint light flickered uncertainly, like the dying breath of a candle, and with it, the giggles of the children turned into chilling whispers. Welcome home. One voice chirped sweetly, but the underlying venom was unmistakable. Jenna pushed herself to her feet and scanned around. Dozens of eyes, hollow and bright, stared back at her from the shadows. Their faces twisted in anticipation, a grotesque mockery of innocence. They were children lost and broken, just like the girl in the shadows. The realization jolted Jenna. Each of them had been a victim, trapped in this nightmare. And she was next. "Where is Sophie?" she demanded, battling the fear rising in her chest. A chorus of whispers erupted. "Do you really want to find her?" one child taunted, stepping closer, its face shifting like a bad dream. "Sophie is where the light ends and the darkness begins." A chill crept into Jenna's bones. "What do you mean?" "There's no way out," another child murmured, a wide grin spreading across his pale cheeks. "You find her, but you can't bring her back, not if you're still breathing in our world." Fear rippled through Jenna. "I have to save her. She's my best friend. You have to help me." "Help?" The girl's voice echoed again from within the shadows, mocking. "You think you can help her? You can only join her. Join us." The ground trembled as Jenna felt the despair of the children pooling around her, clawing at her sanity, trying to drag her down. Suddenly, a flicker of light caught her eye, a small, familiar shimmer in the distance. It pulsed softly, beckoning her forward. "Find the light, it's the only way," a whisper urged from the edge of certainty. But as she took a step, hands shot from the ground, clutching her ankles with fierce desperation. "No! You can't leave us!" they chanted, digging their fingers into her flesh. Jenna gasped, prying at their fingers, her heart racing. The laughter and cries of the children melded into a deafening roar that threatened to drown her. She couldn't succumb to the darkness that wanted to swallow her whole. With renewed determination, she tore herself free. "I won't give up. I'll find Sophie." Shoving past the grasping hands, Jenna sprinted toward the flickering light. It pulsed with an eerie brightness, growing stronger with each step, illuminating her path but dimming the shadows behind her. But the children shrieked in fury, the bond of the damned breaking as she ran. "Stop her!" The shrill voice of the girl echoed through the cavern. As she neared the light, Jenna felt a strange warmth wash over her, countering the cold chaos of the shadows. But it came at a price. A voice screamed from the depths, echoing Sophie's name, warping it into a cry filled with dread. "What have you done?" The shadows gurgled, merging into a swirling mass of rage, rushing towards her. Jenna launched herself toward the light, the darkness clawing at her heels. Just as she crossed the threshold, the cavern shuddered violently, releasing a howl that resonated in her bones. As the light enveloped her, she felt the hands grasping her again, but this time, they were warm. "Jenna, don't let go," a voice whispered. Familiar, desperate. "Sophie. Find me." In that moment, Jenna realized. This was merely the beginning. What had she awakened, and where did the light lead? The light consumed Jenna, wrapping around her in a warm embrace that felt both comforting and alien. As her vision adjusted, she found herself standing in a narrow corridor, illuminated by flickering bulbs hanging from metal fixtures above. It smelled of damp earth and decay, a stark contrast to the vibrancy of the warmth that had enveloped her moments before. "Jenna." Sophie's voice echoed faintly from somewhere down the hall. It was a sound filled with anguish yet laced with hope. Jenna's heart raced as she took off, her feet pounding against the cold concrete floor. "Sophie." She called back, desperation clawing at her throat. The walls closed in on her, shadows pooling in the corners like hungry specters. As she ran, the corridor extended endlessly, each step laced with growing dread. The warmth began to fade, leaving her shivering in the oppressive chill of the tunnel. Glancing over her shoulder, she thought she saw shapes flit in the shadows, figures watching her, grinning with a malicious delight. "Don't look back. Keep going." Another whisper, this time from an unknown source, mingling with Sophie's fading call. Jenna hesitated, battling the urge to turn. But the echo of cold laughter chased her forward, driving her deeper into the unknown. The corridor branched into several darkened passages. Each one appeared more sinister than the last, the air thick with stifling uncertainty. But there was no time to consider the fear, she had to find Sophie. "Take the left," a disembodied voice shouted from a nearby passage. Jenna felt a twinge of panic but trusted the voice, darting left. Against all logic, something in her gut told her it was right. As she tore down the new path, an overwhelming sense of urgency fueled her legs, but it was met with an unsettling stillness. The further she went, the quieter it became, the faint echoes of her own breaths amplifying ominously in the silence. Then, she saw a soft golden glow emanating from a door at the end of the hall. Hope surged inside her. "Sophie!" she whispered, quickening her pace. The door creaked open as soon as she reached for it. The hinges groaned in protest, revealing a dimly lit room. Inside, it was a chaotic jumble of horrors. Old dolls with cracked faces lined the shelves, their eyes glinting with malice. Cobwebs hung in thick curtains, and the walls were stained with dark streaks as if something had clawed its way through. And there, in the center of it all, sat Sophie, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. She was bound to a chair, her body trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. "Jenna!" she gasped, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Help me!" Rushing forward, Jenna felt a sharp pain pierce through her chest. A cold hand emerged from the shadows behind her, gripping her heart with an icy vice. The room pulsed with a dark energy, making it hard to breathe. "You shouldn't have come," Jenna panic-filled Jenna as she tried to reach for Sophie, but the entity constricted tighter, wrapping its tendrils around her will, creating a fog of despair in her mind. "Leave her!" she screamed, struggling against the weight of the darkness. But the voices of the children flooded back into her head, their taunts mingling with Sophie's cries, twisting reality. "Join us," they beckoned, their giggles now sinister echoes, worming their way into her consciousness. "No!" Jenna shouted, forcing her mind to fight through the web of whispers. "I want tea. I will not let this take me." With a final surge of adrenaline, she lunged toward Sophie, cutting through the mist of shadows that threatened to engulf them both. Just as her fingers brushed Sophie's face, a deafening wail erupted from behind, shaking the very ground beneath her. Light spilled into the room, washing away the darkness. Yet, instead of freedom, it birthed an overwhelming horror. The door slammed shut, and the air thickened with silence. Jenna and Sophie stood frozen, now enveloped in a blinding glow, not the light of salvation, but the spotlight of something far more terrifying. "What have we awoken?" Sophie's voice trembled. Shadows began to dance at the edges of the light, creeping closer, whispering their sinister secrets. Jenna's heart dropped, realizing they were far from safe. "Can we ever escape this?" she whispered, the weight of despair already settling upon her. The shadows swirled closer, beckoning them back into the depths, as a chilling realization engulfed them both: not every light was meant to lead them home. What sought to take them next? The shadows crept closer, their whispers rising into a maddening hum that filled the air with dread. Each word twisted around Jenna's mind like a cold serpent, tightening and squeezing until she could barely think straight. She glanced at Sophie, whose pale face was illuminated by the harsh light, tears shimmering like tiny diamonds on her cheeks. "Jenna, we need to get out of here," Sophie pleaded, her voice barely more than a desperate breath. The sound sent tremors through Jenna's spine, rattling her core. "No kidding." Jenna shot back, fear sharp in her tone. She turned to the light, momentarily blinding her, trying to peer past its brilliance. The shadows whispered in a cacophony around them, each voice a fragment of something ancient and malign. "What do you want?" Jenna shouted, her words bursting out against the rising tide of terror. A low, throaty chuckle echoed from within the brightness. "You've woken us, my dear," the voice cooed, dripping with honeyed malice. "And now you're ours." Chills danced down Jenna's arms as she glanced at the door behind them, the heavy wood still trembling from the abruptness of its closing. "What is this place?" She pressed, her mind racing for answers amid the chaos. This is where the lost gather, the voice laughed, playful yet sinister. Where they await their next game. What game? Sophie interjected, her eyes darting around, searching for an escape. Silence. The shadows thickened, creeping ever closer, almost tangible. The oppressive weight bore down on Jenna's chest, squeezing the breath from her lungs. She felt the darkness clawing at her thoughts, tempting and taunting with that insidious laughter. Playtime, came the reply, venomous and jubilant. In an act of defiance, Jenna clenched her fists, forcing herself to focus on Sophie. She was here for her, and she couldn't be lost again. We're not playing, Jenna declared, steeling her resolve. We want to leave. You think you can simply walk away? The voice, once playful, now dripped with scorn. You've entered a world of our making. You will play and you will lose. The light flickered violently, the shadows shuddering with excitement as if they anticipated a feast of despair. Jenna could feel them probing her mind, searching for her fears, her regrets, her deepest vulnerabilities. She recoiled inward, trying to push them away, but the pressure made her head spin. Then Jenna remembered the dolls, their cracked faces grinning at her from the shelves, lifeless yet filled with a menacing life of their own. Sophie. She called, forcing her voice steady. Think. We need to face them together. Sophie nodded, her determination faltering only for a moment. Right together. The room seemed to pulse with anticipation as Jenna stepped forward, her body trembling but her heart steadying. What's your game? Show us what you've got. She challenged, refusing to relent. A gale of unsettling laughter erupted, causing the dolls to rattle in their places. One figure began to emerge from the shadows, a visage blurred yet glimmering with malicious glee. We'll play a game of memories. It grinned, voice slithering like smoke. You'll revisit your past and the truth shall bind you. In an instant, the ground beneath them shook, and colors splintered like glass shattering. No! Jenna screamed, but the world around them blurred and twisted. She felt an insatiable pulling sensation, as though gravity itself had betrayed her, yanking her into a realm she didn't recognize. The brightness faded, replaced by the echoes of laughter and the crushing weight of despair. Jenna's vision cleared, and she found herself on a playground, a place she hadn't thought about in years. She saw children playing, their laughter hauntingly sweet except for one thing: the children were gone. Instead, they lingered as shadowy figures, staring at her with hollow eyes. Faces from the past, the voice crooned around her. Let us see what they bring. Panic settled in her chest as she turned back to Sophie, who now stood amidst the shadows, her own face shifting into a reflection of torment and fear. What did they do to us? Jenna gasped, the revelation hitting her like a punch. The shadows laughed, and the figures closed in. What are we going to lose next? Jenna breathed, as the darkness surged forward, ready to swallow them whole. And there, at the brink of a new nightmare, hope flickered dimly, extinguished by uncertainty. Would their memories be their salvation, or their condemnation? The shadows enveloped them, swirling like a vortex of despair. Jenna's heart raced, each beat thunderous against the hollow whispers that taunted her. She could barely breathe, a heavy weight pressing on her chest as she scanned the gloom and the spectral figures that drifted like phantoms in her memory. Jenna, Sophie's voice trembled, pulling Jenna's attention back to her friend. What are they doing? I don't know. Panic clawed at Jenna's throat. The figures shifted, their hollow eyes boring into her soul. Memories long buried began to surface, echoes of laughter, snippets of old conversations. The happiness felt foreign, tainted as shadows twisted the memories into something grotesque. One figure broke away from the rest, the faint outline of a familiar face, a boy from her childhood. Tommy. Remember when you left me? He whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of betrayal and sorrow. The words lanced into Jenna like daggers, each syllable dripping with blame. No. That's not fair. Jenna shouted, desperation bursting forth. You were my best friend. I didn't mean to what? Tommy's visage floated nearer, his features now obscured beneath dark, dripping tendrils of shadow. Leave me behind? Forget my face? Jenna squeezed her eyes shut, the memories swirling, threatening to ruin her. I never forgot. She cried out, her voice cracking. She was overwhelmed, a flood of guilt and sorrow crashing over her. Sophie stepped back, eyes wide with fear as she faced figures from her own past, faces warped by anger and loss, their twisted whispers cutting through the air. What do they want from us? She asked, her breath hitching. The truth, my dears, the haunting voice chuckled, slithering around them like smoke. You must confront what you've buried to escape. Jenna turned to see the shadows inching closer, feeding off their fear. We can't let them do this to us. She shouted, grounding herself. We are not our past mistakes. Courage is not enough, the voice hissed, its tone laced with malice. You think defiance will set you free? What you've done has marked you, Jenna. Embrace the past, or lose everything. The shadows writhed, and the air became thick, suffocating. Memories twisted like barbed vines, entangling her. Faces she thought she had forgotten surfaced, the night she played in the moonlight with friends, the arguments, the loss. Look! Sophie cried, pointing towards a new figure emerging from the shadows, a version of herself, distorted and screaming in agony. It flailed, trapped within a wall of darkness, etched in despair and regret. No! Sophie stumbled back. That's not me. That can't be me. Yes, the voice echoed gleefully. It is the you that lingers here, trapped between worlds. The pieces of your soul forgotten. Jenna felt fury burning within her. We are not lost. We choose who we become. The shadows faltered, recoiling as if Jenna's words held power. You're stronger than the past, as long as you fight. She encouraged Sophie. With newfound resolve, they joined hands, standing against the oppressive weight of the memories. Shadows thrashed against the light they emitted, flickering in uncertainty. Together, Jenna said, clenching Sophie's fingers tight. Together we can break this curse. But even as determination surged, a chilling laughter erupted, signaling the shadows drawing closer again. Oh, my sweet girls, this is not finished. Then, a deep rumble echoed like thunder, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The playground around them began to crack, each fracture unfurling into darkness, threatening to consume all. What's happening? Sophie gasped, her eyes darting around wildly. Jenna felt the tremors in the ground underneath her, and she shouted against the thickening air, we have to remember who we are. And just as the shadows lunged, they heard the chilling, disembodied voices chant, what will you sacrifice to save yourselves? The ground split open beneath them, and the thought of her sacrifice flickered through Jenna's mind. It felt terrifyingly real. Could she even face such a choice? Darkness rushed in. Hungry for their souls, and Jenna braced herself for what lay ahead. In the engulfing chaos and the desperate shadows she realized she had to confront not just the memories but the missing pieces of herself. What must she give up to escape from this nightmare? The fissure widened, gaping like a mouth ready to swallow them whole. Jenna felt the heat of the darkness seeping into her skin, tugging at her ankles, relentless. She couldn't let go of Sophie's hand, not now, not ever. But would holding on be enough? Jenna! Sophie begged, her voice barely audible above the cacophony of whispers and the cracking ground. What do we do? Jenna's mind raced. We face them. We have to confront it all. The shadows swirled, shape-shifting into cruel snapshots of her life, the yearbook photos where Tommy grinned beside her, the birthday party where she forgot to save him a piece of cake. Each image sliced through her, the guilt like a knife. Forget everything, she screamed, wrapping her mind around the words like a shield. They can't hurt us unless we let them. But the shadows only cackled, their laughter a graveyard echo, cutting deeper. Your memories will become your prison, Jenna. Embrace your regrets or be eternally consumed. The ground shuddered again, threatening to swallow them into its eternal night. Jenna closed her eyes, taking a breath as a flood of painful memories washed over her. Images of betrayal, despair, the day she lost Tommy to the abyss, a car crash she tried to forget. Her world spun as regret sank its icy fingers into her heart. No! She shouted, trying to keep the memories at bay. I want to be haunted. Suddenly, Sophie's voice surged through the thick fog of darkness. We can't let them win. Remember who we are. We are alive. Jenna opened her eyes to find Sophie radiating a fierce light, her determination merging with Jenna's own. Together, they held onto each other tighter, forming a barrier against the encroaching void. The shadows writhed, repelled by their combined energy. Push back! Jenna yelled, her voice a war cry. The fear that once paralyzed her turned into a powerful surge of defiance. They concentrated, imagining their pasts like strings unraveling, allowing the light within to burn away the darkness. Suddenly, the laughter faded, replaced by anguished screams as swirling shadows began to break apart. No! This cannot be, the voice hissed, distorted and furious. The fractured memories fell like shattered glass, a whirlwind of echoes circling. Jenna's heart pounded, each thud echoing in their struggle against the darkness. We are not our mistakes, she cried out, feeling the weight of the past lift as clarity formed. We decide who we become. The patterns of despair began to unravel as if each word was a thread snapping free. Shadows shrieked, twisting violently, their forms splitting, flickering out like dying flames. Yet, darkness still clawed at them, trying to pull them back into its depths. What will you sacrifice? The disembodied voice taunted, now rasping with fear. To gain your freedom, what will you give? Jenna's breath faltered. Sacrifice? The word hit her like a freight train. The shadows seemed to sense her hesitation, creeping closer again. Do we need to sacrifice a memory? Sophie asked, voice trembling but fierce. Or do we have to give up something else? No! Jenna shouted. Whatever they want, we can't. And just like that, a new realization ignited within her. This was the crux of it: every act of courage was born from sacrifice. A shudder of understanding passed between them, but a choice loomed, ominous and heavy. Before Jenna could gather her thoughts, the ground beneath them trembled violently, and they fell into the darkness, screaming. The echoes of their cries hung in the air like whispers. The world spun, and as the walls of shadows closed in to claim them, what faded in the darkness became painfully clear. Only one could return, holding on to hope while letting go of the past. The shadows paused, pulsing with anticipation. Jenna and Sophie had less time than they realized. What sacrifice would save them? As the darkness slithered closer, Jenna's heart raced with a new fear. Would she betray her own friend to find freedom? And if so, at what cost? What would she be willing to lose? The chilling uncertainty wrapped around her like a noose, squeezing tighter as the shadows loomed ever closer. In the suffocating darkness, Jenna's heart thundered in her chest as choices unfurled like menacing shadows before her. The suffocating pressure mounted, and with each anguished breath, she grasped tighter to the remnants of hope. We can't let it end like this, she cried, desperation spilling from her heart. The shadows writhed closer, hungry whispers clawing at her resolve. Sophie's face, once filled with warmth, now bore the haunting reflection of uncertainty. What if Sophie began, her voice trembling as if challenged by the impending darkness, what if we let go of our regrets, together? A sudden clarity struck Jenna. She squeezed Sophie's hand, recalling all the laughter, the adventures, the small moments that wove their lives together. We can't lose each other, she gasped, the tightness in her chest loosening just enough for light to flicker through. We have to face what we've done. Together. The shadows paused, as if the very air held its breath. Together? The voice of Shadow rumbled, doubt creeping into its melody. They are liars. Their past taints them, their hearts divided. Jenna pushed through the fear. No. Our past made us who we are. She looked deeply into Sophie's eyes, the connection burning bright. Together, we can let go of what weighs us down. As if ignited by their shared resolve, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The shadows shrank back, flickering like candle flames in a windstorm. Jenna breathed the warmth from Sophie's determination, focusing on the memories that didn't bind them but freed them. Laughter in the moonlight, secrets shared, dreams unfurling before their very eyes. Let it go. Sophie echoed, her voice now strong and unwavering. Let us face this darkness. We are not here to be claimed. We will shine brighter than our fears. With minds intertwined, they drew forth the memories that gave them strength, friendship, resilience, their children, everything they fought for. Each moment added fuel to their light. The shadows screeched in protest, converging like a gathering storm, desperate to snuff out the flames. But they couldn't, not this time. Jenna and Sophie locked eyes, a silent agreement manifesting between them. Let us tell them who we are. They shouted as one, the echo bursting forth like a shockwave. In that climactic instant, the very essence of their beings merged in the flood of bright light surrounding them. Memories became a beacon, a whirlwind of laughter and love enveloping their souls, fortifying them, shielding them from the grasp of the shadows. This is who we are. They cried, and darkness billowed back, congealing under the onslaught of their unified spirit. The shadows thrashed, fury igniting their forms, but they were no longer powerful. They were shaken by the strength that burned brighter than fear, the power of friendship, a bond unbreakable by despair. No! Howled the shadows, as wisps of their forms tore away and dissolved, lost in the brilliance surrounding Jenna and Sophie. With a final surge, the light erupted, flooding the cavern with warmth. Jenna felt a gentle tug as the world cracked around them, the realms between light and dark rupturing. The cavern shattered like glass, and they soared through the rip, tumbling back into the safety of reality. Suddenly, the warmth of the sun kissed her skin, vibrant scents enveloped her, cherry blossoms in bloom. Jenna and Sophie found themselves sprawled on the grass of the community park, the laughter of children echoing in the distance. The weight of shadows gone, like a nightmare that dissolved with dawn. What just happened? Sophie blinked, momentarily bewildered yet filled with relief. Jenna's heart swelled with gratitude. We faced them. We found our strength together. Their hands remained clasped, a physical manifestation of their bond. As they took in their surroundings, warmth filled the air, birds trilled cheerfully above, and children ran amidst the blossoming joys of spring. They could finally breathe real freedom, unclouded by the shadows of the past. No longer haunted, they could build a future brightened by laughter instead of trembling fear. Let us make new memories, Sophie smiled, an expression of pure light, her spirit restored. Absolutely, Jenna replied, relief washing over her. They had escaped the clutches of despair and emerged victorious from the haunting past. Jenna bent to pick a cherry blossom, cradling its delicate beauty in her palm. To new beginnings, she whispered. To new beginnings. Sophie echoed, throwing her arms wide, embracing the vibrant sky. They laughed, two friends united, their hearts free from fear. And as laughter echoed around them, the past faded, a distant whisper, no longer haunting but a chapter closed in the timeless journey of life. This was their moment. To all of you hanging out with us, now's your chance. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now, let us show that algorithm some love. And I want to hear all your reactions and theories about how this ended, so flood that comments section. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support for what we're building together. Let us keep the conversation going. I can't wait to see where we take it next.